Somewhere along the way, you started dreading the things you used to look forward to. Sunday dinners with the family, happy hours with coworkers, catching up with old friends over coffee. These used to feel easy, natural. You would show up, go through the motions, laugh at the right moments, and walk away feeling like a normal person who had normal relationships. But lately, something shifted. You sit through a conversation that should feel comfortable, and all you want to do is leave. You show up to a gathering you have been looking forward to for weeks, and within the first 20 minutes, you are counting down the minutes until you can make up an excuse and go home. You love the people in the room. You know that. But something about being around them now feels like wearing shoes on the wrong feet. Not painful enough to scream about, but wrong in a way you cannot stop noticing. And the guilt that comes with that feeling might be the worst part of all of it, because you have been doing the work. You have been growing, reading, reflecting, sitting with yourself, asking harder questions about who you are and who you want to be. You expected that process to make you warmer, softer, more connected to the people around you. Instead, it made you want to be alone. Today, we are going to talk about why that happens. We are going to dig into the psychological framework that Carl Jung spent decades developing, and we are going to use it to explain something that almost nobody in the personal development space talks about honestly. Real psychological growth does not always feel like expansion. Sometimes it feels like contraction first, and the social withdrawal that comes with genuine inner work is not a warning sign. It is a marker. Let us start at the very beginning. Jung gave us a concept called the persona. And before you tune out because it sounds academic, stay with me, because this is the most important idea in this entire conversation. The persona is the version of you that learned how to survive other people. Think back to when you were a kid. Maybe you figured out pretty quickly that showing certain emotions got you in trouble. Crying made the adults uncomfortable. Being angry made people pull away. Asking too many questions made the room go quiet. So without anyone sitting you down and explaining the rules, you started editing yourself. You tucked things away. You put on whatever face got the best response from the people around you. Over time, that face became automatic. You stopped choosing it. It just appeared whenever other people appeared. And because it worked, because it got you friendship and approval and belonging, you eventually stopped questioning whether it was really you or just a very convincing performance of you. Jung called this the construction of the persona, and he was careful to point out that there is nothing sinister about it. Every person alive does this to some degree. The persona is not a lie so much as a social agreement. You show up in a way that fits the context, and people respond to that. Nobody wants to sit across from someone who dumps every unfiltered emotion onto the table the second they sit down. Some degree of social presentation is just how human beings get along. The problem is not that the persona exists. The problem is when you forget that it exists. And most people forget. Most people spend decades, sometimes their whole lives, running on autopilot. The mask becomes so familiar that it becomes invisible. You do not even feel it anymore. You just think that is who you are. Then something happens. A loss, a crisis, a period of intense self-examination, a stretch of therapy, a book that cracks something open in you. Whatever the trigger is, something shifts. And for the first time in a long time, maybe for the first time ever, you start seeing yourself clearly. And what you realize, when that clarity hits, is that a whole lot of what you thought was you was actually a performance. That is disorienting on its own. But here is where it gets really complicated. This is the part that nobody prepares you for. Jung observed something fascinating in patients who were going through genuine psychological transformation. He noticed that the moment a person begins to see their own persona clearly, they develop an almost involuntary ability to see everyone else's persona too. It is like your whole life you have been watching a movie, completely absorbed in the story. The characters feel real. The drama pulls you in. You care about what happens. Then one day, For no obvious reason. You notice the camera. You see the lights hanging above the set. You hear the same lines getting repeated in slightly different orders. And no matter how hard you try to get back into the story, you cannot, because now you see the machinery. That is what happens to your social world when genuine psychological work kicks in. Suddenly, you notice the gap between what people say and what they actually mean. You feel the anxiety running underneath your colleagues' cheerful performance. You sense the competition buried inside your friends' compliments. You pick up on the way a family member uses warmth as a lever to get what they want. You are not reading too much into things. You are not being paranoid. Your perception has simply gotten sharper. And sharper perception means you are now picking up signals you used to filter out entirely. And this is where the discomfort starts, because you cannot unhear a frequency once your ears are tuned to it. Every social interaction now has two layers. There is the surface layer, the words, the smiles, the small talk about weekend plans, and the weather. And then there is the layer underneath, the actual emotional currents running through the conversation, the unspoken agendas, the quiet competition, the carefully managed impressions. Before, you only had access to the surface. That felt fine. The surface is comfortable, familiar, easy to navigate. Now you have access to both layers simultaneously, and the gap between them is exhausting. This is the first reason people start pulling away from their social lives during a period of real inner growth. It is not that they dislike people as human beings. It is that every interaction now requires them to process two conversations at once. That is tiring in a way that is genuinely hard to describe to someone who has not felt it. Here is the layer that goes even deeper. When you start seeing the performances in other people, something uncomfortable happens. You recognize them. Not because you are especially perceptive, but because you used to give those same performances yourself. You see a friend use helpfulness as a way to feel important. And you remember every time you did the exact same thing. You watch a family member smooth over conflict with cheerfulness instead of having the honest conversation. And you wince, because you did that for years. You notice a colleague seeking constant validation in ways they probably do not even realize. And you feel that recognition in your gut, because you have been there. The people around you become, in Jung's framework, mirrors. They reflect back a version of the person you are actively trying to leave behind. And looking in that mirror is not comfortable. It does not feel superior or condescending, even though it might look that way from the outside. It feels more like the discomfort of seeing a photo of yourself from a few years ago, when you were in a bad place. You do not hate the person in the photo, but you do not love being reminded of them either. Jung had a term for a specific piece of this dynamic. He called it shadow projection reversal. Before you do serious inner work, you tend to project your own unacknowledged qualities onto the people around you. Whatever you cannot accept in yourself, you perceive in others. After genuine transformation starts, that process flips. You stop projecting outward and start recognizing inward. And one of the side effects of that recognition is that watching other people do the things you used to do becomes almost unbearable. Think about someone who quit smoking after years of trying. They do not just feel neutral about cigarettes anymore. The smell becomes physically uncomfortable. They do not judge smokers from some high moral ground. They just cannot be around it, because it is too close to something they fought hard to get away from. That is what the social withdrawal often feels like during genuine psychological growth. Not judgment, not arrogance, recognition, and the very human desire to create some distance from what you recognize. There is a physical dimension to this that often gets completely ignored. We talk about psychological growth in abstract terms, as though it all happens somewhere up in the mind, disconnected from the body. But that is not how it works. When your perception shifts, when your internal compass recalibrates, your entire nervous system recalibrates along with it. Before inner work, sitting through 2 hours of small talk at a family gathering might have felt fine. A little boring maybe, but basically okay. You could participate in a conversation that had no real substance and feel like you had just spent a normal evening with people you care about. After real inner work, that same evening can feel physically draining in a way that is hard to rationalize. Not because anything dramatic happened, not because anyone was cruel or dishonest in any obvious way, just because your system is now allergic to a certain kind of inauthenticity, and it registers every extended exposure to it the way a body registers an allergen, with fatigue, with tension, with a deep, persistent pull toward the exit. Jung observed this in patient after patient. He described it as a recalibration of the entire system, not just the intellect. And he was clear that this was not oversensitivity. He called it accurate sensitivity. Your nervous system is correctly identifying that certain interactions require you to suppress your awareness in order to participate in them. And suppressing awareness, once it is genuinely expanded, is not neutral. It is painful. This is also where the guilt tends to get loudest, because the people you are pulling away from have not done anything wrong by any normal standard. Your mom is still your mom. Your friends are still your friends. Nobody has changed. You have changed. And the part of you that understands the nature of growth knows that the people around you are doing exactly what they have always done, which is fine, which is their right, which is not a moral failure in any sense. But the part of you that has recalibrated cannot pretend it does not feel what it feels. And that tension between your love for these people and your visceral reaction to interactions that require you to dim yourself down is one of the most genuinely difficult parts of the whole process. Here is something Jung found that almost nobody talks about when they describe spiritual or psychological growth. The withdrawal does not hit all your relationships at once. It moves in a specific order. First, it takes the acquaintances, the casual connections, the people you see at parties and make small talk with, and never really think about between encounters. Losing those barely registers. If anything, it feels like relief. You stop forcing yourself to maintain connections that were never real in the first place, and your calendar gets a little cleaner, and that feels fine. But then the process moves inward, toward the friendships that actually meant something, the people you have history with, decades of shared experience. But then the process, old inside jokes and late-night conversations, and someone who knew you way back when, and that is where it stops feeling clean. Because you do not stop loving your oldest friend when you start noticing that the friendship has always been slightly uneven. You do not stop caring about your sibling when you recognize that your relationship with them has been built on a dynamic that no longer works for you. The love does not go anywhere. It just loses the channels it used to move through, because those channels ran on a version of you that no longer quite exists. Jung described individuals in this phase as being caught between two genuinely impossible positions. Option 1, suppress your awareness. Go back to the performance. Maintain your relationships by pretending you cannot see what you can see. Keep the peace. Keep the belonging. Lose your integrity. Option 2, stay honest with yourself about what you are experiencing. Let the relationships recalibrate or fall away as they need to. Keep your integrity. Lose the belonging. There is no clean answer. There is no trick that lets you hold both at the same time. And that is why so many people who begin this kind of inner work quietly turn back. The social cost is real. The loneliness of seeing clearly is real. And choosing to go back to the comfortable performance is not weakness. Jung did not think of it that way. He understood that consciousness is not a moral achievement. It is a psychological event that happens to certain people, whether they asked for it or not. For those people, the ones who cannot genuinely go back even when they try, the only option is forward, through the discomfort, not around it. Now here is the part that most conversations about awakening completely skip over. The withdrawal is not permanent. The disliking does not last. But what replaces it is not what you expected when you started this journey. It is not the warm, all-encompassing love that gets sold in spiritual spaces. It is not a return to enjoying everyone equally and feeling connected to all of humanity. That was never a realistic destination. What actually comes out the other side is something harder and rarer, and ultimately more valuable. Jung called it clear-eyed compassion. It works like this. After you have fully moved through the grief of seeing through performances, after you have sat with the loneliness of operating at a different frequency than most of the people around you, after you have accepted that most people are doing the best they can with the awareness they have, which is not a moral failing but just a developmental reality, after all of that, the reactivity starts to fade. You can look at someone running a performance and feel genuine warmth for the wound that made them feel like they needed it. You can see the manipulation inside a dynamic and understand its origin without needing to either participate in it or announce it to the room. You can be around inauthenticity without being destroyed by it, not because you stopped noticing it, but because you stopped needing everyone to drop it. Jung called this conscious relationship. The capacity to engage with people based on what is actually happening, rather than what is being presented. And he was clear that this capacity only develops after you have gone through the phases of withdrawal and discomfort. You cannot skip the painful middle and arrive at the wisdom on the other end. The painful middle is the mechanism. It is the process through which your entire relational system rewires itself. There is one more thing we need to talk about, because it almost never gets said out loud. You are allowed to grieve this. You are allowed to mourn the ease of not knowing, the simplicity of going to a dinner party and just being present without perceiving the machinery, the comfort of shared blindness, the sense of belonging that comes from participating in the collective performance without questioning it. Those were real experiences. That comfort was real. That belonging was real. The fact that it was built partly on unconscious participation does not make it less valuable or less worthy of grief. Jung was honest about this. He told people plainly that consciousness carries a price. The price is ease. The price is the simple warmth of relationships that did not require you to be particularly awake. The price is the ability to walk into a crowded room and feel at home without having to think about it. And some people, when they count that cost carefully, decide it is too high. They try to step back into the performance, to rebuild the persona that started dissolving. And Jung found that this almost never works the way people hope it will. Once awareness genuinely expands, it does not contract on command. You can act like you do not see, but that acting is itself another performance. And performing for yourself, hiding your own awareness from yourself, is a lonelier experience than any social isolation. So the path forward is not retreat, but it is also not grinding through the discomfort by sheer willpower. The path forward, according to Jung, is what he called conscious participation. Conscious participation is not a technique. It is more like a shift in orientation. You stop showing up to social situations trying to go back to the way things felt before. That door is closed. But you also stop showing up with the posture of a person who has seen through everything and is quietly suffering while everyone else remains asleep. That posture is just another kind of performance, and a particularly exhausting one. Instead, you show up from what Jung called the self, the deeper, integrated center of who you are, underneath all the personas, underneath all the performances, underneath all the strategies for getting through a room full of people. In practice, this looks like being able to attend the dinner and not need it to be anything other than what it is. You see the performances without needing them to stop. You notice the undercurrents without needing to name them. You can be present in a room full of people who are operating unconsciously and feel okay about that. Not because you have become indifferent, but because you have genuinely accepted that this is how the world works for most people most of the time, and that acceptance does not require your own dimming. The disliking softens into discernment. The revulsion transforms into selective engagement. The loneliness over time, becomes solitude. And solitude and loneliness are not the same thing at all. Loneliness is the pain of unwanted isolation. Solitude is what happens when you have genuinely gotten comfortable in your own company, and you bring that comfort with you even into crowded rooms. Here is what gradually becomes true on the other side of all of this. Your social world will contract, probably significantly. Some relationships will quietly fall away, not through any dramatic confrontation or formal ending, but through a kind of gravitational drift. The unconscious contract that held them together expires. The performance ends. What could not survive without the performance simply dissolves, and what remains is different in quality from anything you had before. Jung noticed this consistently in people who made it through genuine individuation. What came out the other end was a smaller social world, sometimes dramatically smaller, and a depth of connection in that world that simply was not possible before. Not because the remaining people were enlightened or awakened in the same way, but because they were capable of something the old relationships could not sustain. They could be real around you. They did not need to perform for you. Or at a minimum, they were willing to let the performance crack. They could sit with honest conversation without bracing for impact. They could handle complexity without needing to simplify it into something more comfortable. They did not need you to be smaller or more manageable in order to feel safe around you. These people are not easy to find. They do not announce themselves. They do not show up in the obvious places. But when they do appear, you recognize them immediately. Because for the first time in a long time, maybe for the first time ever, you are in the presence of someone who does not need you to wear a mask. And you do not need one around them either. And that quality of connection, just one of those, is worth more than 100 relationships built on the mutual pretending that used to pass for closeness. Carl Jung spent his life studying what happens when human beings become more aware of themselves. And one of the things he kept coming back to, again and again across decades of clinical work, was this idea that the path toward a more authentic life runs directly through a phase that looks, from the outside, like the opposite of growth, the withdrawal, the difficulty connecting, the quiet grief of relationships that no longer fit. These are not signs that something has gone wrong. They are signs that something is actually happening. You are not becoming colder. You are not becoming arrogant. You are not becoming someone who has decided they are too evolved for regular human beings. You are going through what Jung called individuation, the painful, gradual, necessary process of becoming more fully and more honestly yourself. And the social recalibration that comes with that process is not a side effect to be managed. It is part of the transformation itself. Your psyche is pushing people away because it needs space to figure out what genuine connection actually feels like before it can re-engage with a world that mostly operates from behind a mask. If you are in that place right now, if you have been sitting with the guilt of not enjoying people the way you used to, if you have been wondering whether you are losing yourself instead of finding yourself, hear this. You are not broken. You are not becoming antisocial. You are not failing at the whole point of doing inner work. You are in the middle of something real. And the middle of something real is supposed to be uncomfortable. The disliking is temporary. The withdrawal serves a purpose. And what is building underneath all of it, slowly and quietly, is a version of you that can show up in the world without needing to hide, without needing to perform, without needing everyone in the room to agree to only see the surface. That version of you will find the people who can handle the whole picture. The ones who are not threatened by realness. The ones who are, in their own way, doing the same work you are doing. And that connection, when it shows up, will feel like coming home in a way that all the easier, noisier, more crowded belonging never quite did. That is what Jung understood. That is what this whole uncomfortable process is pointing toward. Keep going.